Hi everyone, my name is Cian McCaffrey. I graduated from RCSI in 2015. So just before I get going, I just want to thank RCSI and the Alumni office for asking me to come on and do this. Is very honoured. So it's a nice kind of time to kind of reflect on where I've come from and where I am now. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I, as I mentioned, graduated from RCSI in 2015. Prior to this, I did a degree in sports and exercise science in the University of Limerick. Did that for 4 years. As part of that degree course, I was given the opportunity to complete a year's work experience in Australia with the Adelaide Crows, who are an Aussie rules team over in the south of Australia. It was this kind of time that year where I kind of fell in love with an elite performance environment where everything's working together, staff and players, to produce results on a field where there's lots of ups, lots of downs. I'll be telling you later on with the different clubs I've worked with. So I did that for a year, and that's where I kind of fell in love with the elite performance environment. From then, entered RCSI in 2012 to start my BSc in physiotherapy. Completed 3 great years there. Learned a huge amount, gave me a great foundation for where I am now. So I can't thank my lecturers and my students my students in that year for pushing me on and progressing kind of my level of knowledge and giving me a good foundation to start from. After I graduated RCSI in 2015, I kind of went straight into private practice, just to, I suppose, trying to hone my skills. I went out to Kildare to work in MDC physiotherapy, where physio Mark Cornish kind of took me under his wing, and I learned a huge amount of him, from assessment to treatment to from a business model point of view. I learned a huge amount. While working in MDC physiotherapy, I then went on to do a bit of work with Bohemians Football Club. So Paul Kerwin, who's, I think he's completed his PhD, or he's almost completed his PhD at this stage, from RCSI. He was a guest lecturer in our final year. So in his lecture, he was telling us that he works with Bohemians Football Club. So when I graduated, and I kind of hounded him through email and Twitter to see if there was a work experience or position available to get into the club, which to his credit, Paul got me a position with the under-19s. So I started to do a bit of work with them for a year. So I was covering sessions, running gym sessions, doing injury prevention sessions, and then obviously covering games as well. During that year, I also got to work with the Offaly GA footballers for a year, which was an experience in itself in terms of resources and travel, and kind of everything that goes along with a GA team in winter all the way to spring. So it was a good experience for that, and I also was able to pick up a good bit of work with Hockey Ireland, covering some under-18 men's and women's hockey. Also getting to go to the European Championships, which the year before was in Spain, but I got to go to lovely sunny Cork instead. But again, really enjoyed the experience of all that went with it. After a year working with the Bohemians under-19s, I then went on to work with the first team. So a position became available initially as a strength and conditioning coach. So I had to put back on my University of Limerick sports science hat and kind of get stuck in from that aspect of it. So it was more from a strength conditioning point of view in terms of gym sessions, warm-ups, and nutrition, and everything that goes along with it. So started doing that for the first 6 months, and then eventually, kind of with the help of Paul, became more involved in the medical side of things as well. So was able to do that for 2 years, which absolutely loved. Had 2 great coaches in terms of Keith Long and Trevor Colley, which helped me a huge amount in terms of my practice, my work, and teaching me the ins and outs of a football environment. After 2 years of Bohemians, I then got a position with West Brom Football Club here in Birmingham, with the working in the PDP phase, which is the professional development phase, looking after the 18s and 23s players. Um, uh, did that for 18 months. Again, learned a huge amount, worked with a lot of great staff in terms of coaches, physios, sports scientists. So it really kind of embedded me into the more so the academy football side of things. And it was a great kind of learning curve for me coming over here. After 18 months of working with West Brom, and just last March, which was an interesting time to join the club, I joined Aston Villa Football Club, again working in their PDP phase with the 18s and 23s. I worked here for a week and then got sent home with all this madness that's going on. So wasn't in the building for too long, but thankfully we've been back in now for the last 4 weeks now. So it's so although I've worked for the club maybe for 4 or 5 months or whatever it is, I've only actually been working hands-on and physically for the last 3-4 weeks, and just a week prior to that. So it seems a lot shorter than it actually was. It's a huge kind of privilege and honor to be able to work in an environment like this. We've got a huge amount of resources, there's a huge amount of staff, there's a huge amount of help. Facilities are incredible. So I'm hugely privileged to have got a position and working in this environment. So where we are, we're in the training ground, which is a place called Bodymore Heath, just about 20 miles outside Birmingham city centre. There's 2 buildings, and there's one building actually being opened in October, in Leap Performance Centre, which is a huge facility with state-of-the-art gym equipment and kind of physiotherapy adjuncts that are on offer to the whole club. The other two buildings, and there's one first team building and there's one academy building where I'm kind of situated. Just to give you a bit of an insight on my work with Aston Villa, I was going to go through the aspects I've kind of taken charge of or taken lead on. So one of the first things we've done since we've come back in is we've done some musculoskeletal and functional screening, going through some hop tests, some single leg control tests, some hamstring testing, some groin, some adductors testing, into some specific core testing then as well. So each player under 18s and under 23s will go through a battery of tests. These battery tests are comprised from kind of the areas we target from our annual injury audits that we do at the end of each season here, and then obviously from published epidemiology studies on kind of elite football, looking at kind of targeting different specific areas. So off the back of these screen tests, then we take a kind of proactive approach to injury prevention and management. Any red flags or deficiencies picked up from these tests, each player would be designed and given an individual program based off these musculoskeletal and functional screening tests, which they work on a day-to-day basis to change any weaknesses that they might have, which gives them kind of a better chance of staying fit for the year. We also then do squad injury prevention sessions where we'll focus on different key areas. So it might be glutes and core, it might be single leg control, might be proprioception. Different kind of teams, different aspects each day will be built into the program then as well. So players kind of get a whole kind of play where we kind of look at each risk factor, look at each red flag that's come up on the screening or function test, and we kind of take a full holistic approach, and we're constantly reassessing and auditing our kind of our injury prevention work, our injury management, and then say the performance on the field then as well. So each player will be given an individual program. Along with this individual program, there's player monitoring systems put in place as well. So we'll look at intrinsic load monitoring, such as wellness questionnaires or appeals given on post sessions of gym sessions and field-based sessions. And then we'll look at some extrinsic load monitoring to our GPS, looking at certain metrics of like total distance, high-speed running, sprint distance, max speed, accelerations, decelerations, and maybe number of sprints over 90% max velocity. So we'll have certain criteria for players to hit on a daily basis. So we might have intensive days where the accels and decels are a bit higher, or we might have extensive days where maybe our high speed running is higher on a certain day as well. We'll look at on a week-to-week basis, look at kind of different players different exposures to kind of different metrics on their GPS. So, for example, on a match day, a player will hit over max velocity maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 times, whereas sometimes in a session they might not be given the opportunity to do that in certain drills or certain training sessions, as they might be more kind of in closed spaces. So what we'll do on a Tuesday or Thursday, depending on the week that's in it, we'll expose those players to max velocity. So it's more of an injury prevention, more for hamstrings than anything else. On top of that, in terms of our extrinsic load monitoring, we'll look at some fatigue monitoring as well, and get a game day +2. So with the 18s, we normally play on a Saturday. The 23s will play on a Friday or Monday. So if it's the 18s, we play on a Saturday. On a Monday when they come in, they go through some jump testing, some counter movement jump testing, some double CMJs and some single leg CMJs. And then look at some groin squeeze work on our groin bar, and some hamstring isometric testing on our Nord board. Again, it'll just give us an indicator of maybe how far down on their max effort are, and if they're feeling the effects of fatigue, or still affecting the fatigue from the game, or if they're fresh and good to go. So that's kind of, say, the injury prevention screening and musculoskeletal screening side of things. Then from an injury rehabilitation side of things, we sat down as a department over COVID and kind of went through we designed and went through our own kind of specific kind of phase of rehabilitation, just that so when we're handing over or when we're going through a rehab with a certain player, that we all understand the language we're using, what phases we're in with each player. So it just makes it easier from a club point of view. So we have kind of 5 phase of rehabilitation. We have acute management, so the early stages, looking after the injury when it first happens. We have tissue adaptation, going into football specific reconditioning, return to squad training, and then return to matches or return to performance. So that kind of the 5 phases, and each phase will have a set criteria to go into the next phase. So for example, for acute management, there might be range of motion criteria for a player to hit on that certain injury, whether it be an ankle or a knee, for them to then progress to a tissue adaptation phase, and maybe to progress out of that to the football specific reconditioning, they might have to reach certain strength levels. So maybe whether that be, for example, for an ACL, maybe 1.5 times their body weight on a single leg press, or different variables like that we'll look at. So then might be going into football specific reconditioning, where we might look at more extrinsic load monitoring in terms of their GPS metrics. So a player might have to hit his average weekly distance with no reaction. So it might be a 30k week before he can go back into full squad training, or it might be a look at his accels or decels. We'll look at those metrics specific to the injury before they then return to the squad training. They'll then complete a week of squad training. If there's no reaction, then they'll be available to play matches at the weekend or whenever the next fixture comes up. Throughout these phases, there obviously will be continued then individual rehab programs to make sure that the risk of re-injury continues to decrease. So they might have to continue to hit these metrics even when they're back playing, on top of everything there. So that's just a quick insight into kind of the day in the life and the work we do here at Aston Villa. So if there's ever any questions, I am on Twitter. Cian McPhysio is my handle. So if anyone wants to reach out or ask any questions or say hello, you can contact me through that. So that'd be great. And just before I go again, just want to say a big thank you to RSSI and the Alumni office just for asking me and giving me the opportunity to for this interview. So I just want to say a big thank you again.